All right, another edition of Riding Home. We're just starting. This is Dean Legge and Dylan Weber.
Not prepared.
I surprised you.
A little bit. I'm sipping a tea right now.
How far are you going to stay from the microwave? Are we going to just stand?
Well, okay. I wasn't prepared for this, but let's get to it. That's
how you better be better. What is it?
Go
hard. Do more.
Yeah, do more. The motto of the day and the season for Georgia football. We're not chopping anymore. We are just doing more. We've gotten a little more vague.
What'd you make of the Dogs today? What'd you make of the Dogs, Dylan?
Well, I don't know. I talked to Andrew Thomas for most of the time. In fact, the entire time. Per usual, he's extremely quiet. Yeah. Talked a lot about his piano game. Well, what was it? The John Legend?
Did you like that? You like my question?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Well, yeah. I mean, what
you were in the room? Were you in that room?
Someone asked him about what song
that was me. Yeah, that was me.
What was the song? Some John Legend song.
The song is All of Me by John Legend. I tweeted that out. You're welcome.
Yeah. No, that's great. He also plays the percussion if anyone's interested.
Percussion?
That's what he started.
It could be the xylophone.
I think that's probably what it was, more like marching band percussion.
Yeah, xylophone marching band is a little bit tricky. If you're marching with a xylophone,
I don't know if he was marching, but
I'm just saying if you're really boss, if you got one of those long xylophones and you're marching with them, I mean that's legit. Because most xylophones are on rollers because they weigh 100 pounds. Yeah. But Andrew Thomas, I would bet,
could probably do that.
He could probably do that in pads. No problem. He's just out there. Ding, 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 ding.
That'd be a pretty good workout. I'd like to see that.
We were talking a minute ago, and that's why I just started this thing. You were listening to Riding Home here on Dawg Post. Thank you for listening. We're at SEC Media Days, as you can tell. It's a little bit. We're a little bit stir crazy right now.
A little bit. We just had to sit through.
We had a 2.5 hour dinner that should have taken maybe 40 minutes at most.
And not good food. All right, let's not get into that.
The food was bad.
Let's not get into that. Let's talk Georgia football.
So the Dogs go today. Jake Fromm was very polished. I was only in the room with Kirby for about 10 minutes today. I usually spend more than an hour in the room with the head coach at Georgia, but I had other stuff pressing that was going on. But I did read Kirby essentially say, "Hey, look, what we've done here is not good enough." So
that was a very big point. I mean, he said 24-5. That's fine, but that's not going to do it because you wrote about this the other day. Yeah. The expectation at this point, even though they haven't won it, is national championship or nothing. Yeah,
and I was talking with a friend of mine in college football who this particular person shall remain nameless. And I said, if you judge everyone's season on if they win the national championship, for the last 25 years, there'd be a lot of disappointing teams except the 25 who won it, and that's it. But Texas did not win the national championship last season. I can assure you everyone is high on the horns.
Well, I mean, but no, you don't judge every team by that.
But this is a good point.
The reason Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia are judged by that. Alabama and Clemson, obviously, they've won the past several years. For Georgia, it's because they are keeping up recruiting-wise with them. They have the same talent, the same level of talent as.
I would argue that they have more than Clemson for sure in terms of recruiting. If you're just looking strictly at the mathematics of recruiting, and they are right on top of Alabama, if not in front of Alabama.
Yeah, and that's why they're in that consideration. They have had several great recruiting classes, all great recruiting classes under Kirby. Right. Now he needs to put that together and do what Alabama and Clemson
This is the job that we have not seen Kirby do yet. It's up to him. I mean, today he talked about, he jokingly said, we just got to get the Alabama backup quarterback out of the game. He can't come in and we'll be all right. And it's funny, it's true.
Yeah.
But if you look at the 8 quarters of football between those two schools, 6 of the 8, Georgia was the better team. And, Georgia has either been tied or ahead of Alabama for, I think it's something like 118 of 120 minutes of football. Well, that matters. Like they lost to Vanderbilt in 2016, a team they were better than, but they lost. And they lost because of mistakes or things happen, whatever you want to call it. So I think the important part here by Kirby too is, hey, we're not getting exactly manhandled. we're right there.
Yeah.
And now naturally everyone's saying, all right, congratulations, you're right there. Finish it off.
Well, and he kind of said the same thing behind closed doors. Like we talked about, he knows what the expectation is. And someone asked him about, how does the outside expectation affect you? And he said, well, it doesn't. We know how we want to run this program internally, but, the end result is the same expectation as the outside.
I am wary of hearing teams say, we have our own set of expectations in-house, etc. It's hard to hear that coming from programs that are not top 5 programs. And I think about teams like the Joe Cox-led Mark Richt teams. They weren't going to win a national championship. They weren't going to get to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And you still heard this sort of foolishness coming from programs. At Clemson, for sure. At Alabama, for sure. And I think at Georgia and probably Ohio State.
I think those are the
ones where you're going, yeah, it makes sense for you to be in the playoff. Or in Oklahoma. And it makes sense for you to be talking about a national championship. For Texas, they haven't won the league in forever. For, whoever else, so don't tell me about your standards. Just go out and do it. And the same thing is applying now to Kirby, except he's saying that. He's sort of saying, yeah, okay, I'm going to say it before y'all say it. And so he did.
And you bring up just other teams saying that about expectations. And I doubt Texas doesn't look at the outside expectations because it fluctuates for them a little bit.
I think if you're Texas and you want to talk about a national championship this year, I think you're within your right to do so.
Yeah.
Michigan, maybe. But Ohio State.
Do you think you shouldn't expect one? The fans should not.
So your point here, without saying it, is you're agreeing with what I wrote the other day, specifically as it relates to Georgia, but you're adding Clemson and Alabama. You're saying
they should expect to win the national championship. And of course, and
that's such sacrilege. See, you didn't grow up with this, but I did, and I've been around it for 40-something years. Georgia people aren't like Alabama people. They are much more like, Clemson for decades poor mouth themselves. But I don't know of a fan base that is so comfortable with negativity as Georgia fans.
Well, because it's the Larry Munson effect.
It's Larry Munson. It's totally Larry Munson. And it's Vince Dooley, too.
And just the constant heartbreak that they've seen.
Yeah. Because I had this documentary thing I'm doing, and we had David Pascal in here earlier, and we were talking about, the 07 season, the 12 season, last, 2017, and in the Auburn game in 2013, and he was just like, Georgia fans have had a lot of heartbreak. Well, yeah.
Teams...
from 1983 Texas until 2005, how much heartbreak was there really for Texas? They were just bad.
Yeah,
they were just bad.
There's a difference between heartbreak and bad. Bad, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's South Carolina.
Yeah, you're not going to be winning. But heartbreak is 2012, Chris Conley catching the ball,
right? Exactly,
yards away from the end zone. That's heartbreak because you, right in that moment, are saying Georgia is not only going to make the national championship, but likely win.
Right.
That is heartbreak.
They would win the national championship in that scenario.
Heartbreak is having your expectations just shattered.
Well, and the thing about it is, and this grows the negativity even more, is sometimes the way in which the heartbreak has happened has been in spectacular fashion.
Oh, yes.
When you talk about 2012, 2013 with Auburn, that was just pure luck in a way that you just don't see in life or sports. 2007 national championship game with a great throw and play from Tua, but facing a 2nd and 26 even if they get a 10-yard, they're facing a 3rd and 16 with a kicker who just shanked a 25-yard attempt that they should have won the game in overtime with. So I think Georgia people are not going to believe it's theirs until the morning after. Until the trophy is not just on the way back home, but in a case in Athens, and that's they have lived with it for so long. They are Chicago Cubs. They should be doing better than they always have been, or the Sox. That is what they are. But my point is, just like when you saw it with Boston, you're spending a lot. You're in baseball terms, you're spending a lot of money on players.
And you're
getting Johnny Damon.
And a lot of emotional investment from the fans.
Totally.
And that's the worst part of it.
I mean, 42,000 Georgia fans go down to Jacksonville every single year. It's not in the state. What other fan base does that? There's one, Oklahoma. That's it. Oklahoma has 45,000 that go to Dallas every year.
But that's a shorter drive.
That's a shorter drive. So it's a passionate fan base that has been lost in the desert for getting close to 40 years. And days like today, we don't know. I mean, what happens if Tua gets hurt? He wasn't so hot after he was banged up.
He wasn't hot when he wasn't,
Well, I mean, he was pretty good those first 8 or 9 games, whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah. But it took... He was a little banged up in the SEC championship game. I mean, how bad was that injury at that time?
I don't know, but and then he really got hurt.
Well, that pulled him out of the game.
But I would say that he did not look comfortable at all against Georgia.
Now, was that the injury, or was that the fact that...
I think Georgia was breathing down his throat.
Well, yeah, very
and then Clemson did the same exact thing, a month later.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not a lot of fun to be under pressure as a quarterback. You got Ledbetter running at you and DeAndre Walker and, now little Roquan and Kobe Dean will be flying around. The interesting thing here is that you've got two teams. You got the heavyweight champ in Alabama, and you've got the contender in Georgia. But this other guy has come and beat the champ twice, and in ways that the champ doesn't play. See,
how do you mean?
They don't play, for lack of a better term, dick in the dirt football. Clemson. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
Now their defense is very physical and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like, well, why are we going to play football when we can play basketball on grass? That's what we're going to do on offense. We're going to fling the ball around and so forth. And all of a sudden, if you're Alabama, they're going, well, we're not as programmed to deal with this. We're used to the physicality of the conference. And so Clemson's kind of come in and said, well, we're not going to play by your rules. We're going to do something different.
I mean, that's why that game can end up being a blowout. I don't know if Georgia, Alabama can necessarily, because
it'd be hard.
They play so much like each other.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's hard.
Well, some people that I talk to a lot say, hey, if and when they pass Alabama, it might be that they just pass Alabama and that's it for Alabama. Now that sounds like sacrilege, but you never know when your time is up.
Well, and the thing is, there is a little bit of a clock on Saban. How long is probably pretty long, but as the years go on, recruits start looking at that and they say, I don't know. I mean, Kirby, for the foreseeable future, how old is he?
15 years. He could go easily from
they don't.
No question.
There is extreme job security there. And I'm not saying there isn't with Alabama at the moment.
Well, is Nick Saban going to be at Alabama for the next 15 years? So that would be 2033?
That would be insane.
2034. I mean, is he going to be the head coach at Alabama in 2034?
I wouldn't think so, but I'm not going to put it past him.
I think he's in great shape. He's passionate. He cares about it. But, the best two teams in this league have been Georgia and Alabama the last 2 years. They have proven that with their play in the league. They both have combined to only lose to LSU, Auburn twice, and that's it. And Alabama's beaten Georgia twice. So they have proven they are better. And Clemson has been able to sustain in another league and do sort of what USC did back in the day, just play in a league that's, just chill.
Walk through.
Although the ACC is probably easier now than the Pac-10 ever thought about being. But that is the challenge. Because you were starting to talk about, hey, the playoff this, the playoff that. And you said, hey, what if Georgia and Alabama have to play in the playoff in the semifinal? If I were Clemson, I would be desperate to avoid. If I were any of the three of them and you're getting to the playoff, you've got to be desperate to avoid the other, so to speak.
I mean, yeah. But do you think in reality that Alabama and Georgia could play in that semifinal game, do you think
if one of them doesn't win their division, yes. In fact, I would think that will happen at that. So let's just say the Gators win the division. Georgia goes 11-1. The Gators win it on a field goal at the end of the deal, and then Alabama wins the conference over the Gators decisively. That's Georgia's only loss. Notre Dame's a top 10 team. They go 10-2 with a loss to Georgia and X, or they're 11-1. Maybe Notre Dame's in.
Mm-hmm.
So and then then Clemson in theory is
Clemson would be in. So. 2 of either the Pac-12,
the Pac. I have no confidence.
Big 10 or the Big 12.
I have no confidence in the Big 12 will produce a viable playoff person.
The Big 12?
Excuse me, the Pac-12.
Oh, I don't think so either.
So you're looking at the Big 10 or the Big 12, and as we have seen, the Big 10 champion has been left out for a non-division winning SEC team in the playoff.
Yeah, so I mean,
so it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember who was in the playoff last year. Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, and
Dame.
Yeah. So the Big Ten's been left out a lot.
And if Georgia beats Notre Dame, that likely
eliminates Notre Dame.
Yeah,
you would think,
unless they just smoke everyone else.
I don't know who else is on their schedule, but they don't get bonus points for beating USC.
No, USC's not.
Not this USC team. They would need Stanford to be outstanding, and there's just so much that would have to go their way, but. Any other closing further thoughts on,
today?
Yeah.
Jeremy Pruitt talked a long time.
Yeah.
He talked a long time. I think someone said he talked for 21 straight minutes before he opened it up for questions. And to be honest, his answers were a little brief on the questions. Maybe because the moderator was like, "Hey, man, you gotta speed this up." But
it's gonna be, Jeremy. Has a tremendous. We talked about this at dinner. He has a tremendous challenge at Tennessee.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a tough situation.
DeBerry's a big believer. He thinks they can at least not that they're going to be competing, but
you should be more specific.
Yeah, he thinks they can be decent. He thinks they can be like an A&M in the East, like an 8-4 to 7-5 team. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years.
It's about getting the right quarterback. Matt is saying, "Hey, look, they're recruiting at an efficient level. They're not at Georgia's level. They're probably not at necessarily Florida's level, but they are in there with South Carolina. They're in there just below the Gators. They can beat the Gators. They showed that last year. They just didn't do it." And I'm a little skeptical that Tennessee is going to get a lot past the 7-win mark just because they always are playing the Gators, Dogs, and Tide. That's
like almost it's a guaranteed 2 losses almost with Georgia and Alabama, and then a tough matchup with Florida each year.
And then A&M came to the league today, said howdy. Jimbo was dodging Florida State questions left and right.
The Bleacher Report article that really kind of, I don't know.
Would that come out today or later?
No, that was maybe more than a month ago. But it really pinned a lot on him on the fall of that program. Which you always have to take those kind of things with a grain of salt.
Correct.
It's a few people with an axe to grind. Because you got to remember, he won a national championship there.
He did, and they won the league. They were dominant in that league, and then as soon as they fell apart, and you want to talk about Clemson's path, it doesn't exist that it's difficult. It's because Florida State fell apart. They don't win that division with Florida State being good. So, them and Miami being bad and Virginia Tech not mattering, that's what's killed the ACC. And it's just Clemson. At least in the Big Ten and the Big 12, you have polar opposites. In the Big 12, you have Texas and OU.
Your 2 powerhouses that
you just don't.
Hit each other.
You have Clemson and you have the JV. The best team outside of them in the conference is probably Syracuse, who is not good.
Virginia Tech, maybe? Virginia Tech.
They were 6-6 last year, man.
But they've been. The year before that.
They've been. Miami's been 5-time national champions in a decade before, or 4. The ACC's got to get its act together, generally speaking. It might not hurt Clemson. It may hurt Clemson's chances, but that league is you want to be good at football.
Do you now?
Well, all I'm trying to say is, Clemson needs a margin for error too. And if they ever get into a situation where the SEC champion's undefeated, the Big Ten's undefeated, the Big 12's undefeated, and the Pac-12's undefeated, and they got a loss, they're out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're out. So they don't have a margin for error. And the only time in their history that they've been undefeated is twice. So, it's not going to continue forever that you just string together seasons like that.
Well, because you think that...
And with the losses that they've eaten over time.
Pitt, Syracuse...
I mean, just generally speaking, they have some nasty ones. Everyone has nasty ones, but not to 4-8 Syracuse.
When you're that good, too.
Right, that's my point.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about...
Georgia Vanderbilt.
Yeah, in 2016. We're talking about a national championship contending team, a team, to go back to the beginning of the podcast, that should expect to win the national championship. There are 3. Are you putting anyone else in there with them? OU?
I think you can usually throw...
Ohio State.
But I'm not super sold. I'm not as sold on them as I usually am this year.
Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as sold on either of those because I don't trust their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma...
That new coach at
Ohio State certainly has issues the likes of which they've not seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And Oklahoma doesn't have a gunslinging, Heisman Trophy candidate, like a legit Heisman Trophy candidate winning guy.
I mean, yeah.
He can't.
We're talking about 2 number 1 overall quarterbacks.
Correct.
I mean,
that guy ain't there right now.
Jalen Hurts is not there.
Jalen Hurts is walking through that door. God bless his feet. They've saved Alabama's ass a few times.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma could lose to Iowa State. Oklahoma could lose to Texas.
Certainly.
And then that's the season.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real simple to say. They won't, but anyway.
I mean, but they could lose. They could very well lose 2 games in the season.
What? Who'd they lose to the year? They lost to Iowa State the year they played Georgia, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
That's some rando loss.
It was at Iowa State, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa State is not going to win the Big 12, but they're number 3.
Yeah, they can. I don't know who else would be, honestly.
Yeah, it's rough right now. All right. Well, anyway, the Dogs went today, and we've just I just don't see how we can avoid talking about the playoff basically every time.
Once again, it comes down to the expectations we keep talking about,
and they are embracing them completely.
And when we talk to Georgia, I mean, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the future, and the future involves expectations, and the expectations are to win a national championship.
We're not talking about the Outback Bowl.
No.
All right, Dean Legge and Dylan Weber wrapping up yet another edition. We'll have 2 more of these from Birmingham. So stay tuned. We appreciate everybody listening, and go to dogpost.com right now.